Fantasia is one of those Disney films that I knew I'd seen, but I couldn't really remember the specifics of it. Except for the one Sorcerer's Apprentice scene, of course, which I think pretty much everybody can visualise. So I thought I'd rewatch it. It's on Disney+, and I don't get the appeal. I can see that it's a great achievement in animation for the time, released in 1940, and it is quite compelling to see the animation against the backdrop of this classical music. And I have to say the classical music that they chose, really brilliant. A lot of really great songs there that I loved. But considering it's got 7.7 out of 10 on IMDb and is kind of hailed as this fantastic, phenomenal Disney film, it's basically just an extended version of a lot of Disney's short films, particularly their silly symphonies. It is just a longer version of that, and even the Sorcerer's Apprentice bit wasn't as good as I remembered it, although there is a tiny chance that I'm remembering the other version that was released on Fantasia 2000. So if you're unaware of what this is, it's actually like a 2-hour film, and it starts off with quite a long introduction with the orchestra setting up, and then Leopold Stokowski introduces himself as the conductor of the Philadelphia Orchestra, and he often talks throughout this and introduces different segments, and sometimes I think he talks for too long. By which I mean, if this is aimed at young children, his interruptions are going to really bore them. If this is aimed at an older audience, the actual animation is really, really quite not engaging. I don't want to say boring, but it's not enough to sustain the mind for 2 hours. So the target audience is kind of not clear, and I don't think it appeals to one or the other. I think in small doses it could appeal to both, but there's no real story or anything. Basically what it is they've selected these pieces of classical music, they've played them, and the animators have designed animations that come to their mind when they hear the music. It's interpretive and not that predictable. For example, we hear the Nutcracker, but the images on the screen are not traditional. And I like that. And it starts off exceptionally basic with just the first few pieces have just kind of moving colours, no real images themselves. And then as the songs progress, we get to think where you could actually read a story into it, such as The Sorcerer's Apprentice. The one with the elephants I thought was quite cute. But to be honest, there's not enough there to captivate an adult mind for 2 hours. Like, if I'd seen this in the cinema and just had to sit there for 2 hours, I wouldn't be engaged. I love classical music, and if you go to an opera or something, you see the orchestra, you see the musicians most of the time, and that's engaging. But with this, you're just looking at some moving colours on a screen. Brilliant achievement in editing. Definitely, for the 40s, a fantastic achievement in editing and animation. Some of the interpretations are relatively interesting, and as I said, as the film progresses, the animations do get more and more detailed. I think one of the first ones that kind of caught my attention was this kind of little precursor to Tinkerbell, if you like. I believe that might have actually been the one during the Nutcracker. This little fairy character. And then it gets more and more detailed. We get to the point where we have dinosaurs in it. I wasn't expecting dinosaurs to appear, and that actually kind of pleased me, and I liked that. So it's not that it's not that great. It's just that it's not a 2-hour film. It shouldn't be this long, because if you're just an adult looking at animation on a screen for 2 hours with nothing to stimulate your mind, at least for maybe let's say the first half of it, it's just music with moving colours, and you need something more engaging, something more substantial. Young children might find the colours really beautiful, but then when it's interrupted for the conductor to actually explain things, and sometimes for a relatively decent length of time, the child's mind is definitely likely to wander and not be captivated. And again, that's across 2 hours. So I feel like it's not really attaching itself to one particular audience. There are bits that would appeal to young children, bits that are quite fascinating to the adult mind. Maybe in the 40s the opinion was very different, because it was fresh and exciting. Maybe in the 40s, sitting for 2 hours looking at images that largely, but not entirely, lack narrative, against the backdrop of a well-played orchestra that you can't actually see, for the most part, is probably more of a novelty then than it is now, that's for sure. So it's a great achievement in editing. The colours are fabulously bright and engaging. Some of the animation styles are very cute. The girls who were half girl, half minotaur, centaur, I don't know what word I'm looking for, but you know what I mean. If you've seen it, you'll know what I mean. And then, obviously, the Sorcerer and the Princess one was actually kind of creepy. I don't remember the many, many, many broomsticks being that creepy, but actually it was. Again, fabulous achievement in editing, very well put together in that respect. But it's just a bunch of Disney shorts, that's all it is. It's nothing groundbreaking or phenomenal in that respect. You might as well just watch silly symphonies back to back, which I recommend you do. They're great fun. They're incredible fun. So I don't understand why it's hailed as one of the best Disney films of all time, except maybe for the achievement in editing. But to actually sit down and watch it, I felt no emotions. I felt a little bit of curiosity when we were introduced to slightly more complex interpretations as the film progressed. But for the most part, it's interesting if you're a Disney fan, or if you like, the history of animation or what cinema was like in the 40s, absolutely worth checking out. But don't expect it to be something you can sit down and watch for 2 hours without moving, because it will not stimulate the mind. It's reasonable, it's fun, great music choices, very well played music, really bright colours, engaging in parts, but really nothing that incredible.